Hello everyone, welcome to the February RIPEstat public demo. My name is Christopher, I'm a developer in the RIPEstat development team. I'm going to show you some features that we've added in the past month since the last demo and then give you an idea of the future direction. What is RIPEstat? Basic introduction, so if you've been seeing the demos up to this point then this won't be new to you, but basically numbers are us. The RIPE NCC is all about numbers, internet number resources. So that's IPv4 addresses, IPv6 addresses and ASNs. And the RIPEstat is a tool to really dig down into those resources. It's a single lookup point for all specific IP resource information. Stat stands for either status, which is about real time, what is a particular resource like right now, and statistics, so going back in history, finding out what it was like at a certain point, how it's changed over time. And the idea is that both of these functions support aggregation and zooming in on particular details that you might be interested in. The idea is for RIPEstat to become the interface to all the RIPE NCC's measurement tools. So currently there are tools dotted all over the place on the RIPE NCC web estate, and the idea is to bring it all into one place. So interactive development, pretty much everything we do on RIPEstat, we seek feedback immediately. We want to find out if people like it, if people want it, if people are using it. So it's built in a modular way, so we can add in new building blocks based on what we think our users will want, what our users ask us to provide. It's built now using Data API, as Vasco presented in the previous demo. There's a Data API component and a graphical widget component. We're gradually moving over to this new architecture, and so in next demo or the demo after that, probably everything you see on the site will be these kind of data calls and widgets which you can use, you can put in your site, you can use in scripts, whatever you want. It's a work in progress, it's constantly being built and rebuilt. We demo the new functionality periodically, which is what this is, and we adjust based on the usage and the feedback we get from users. So yeah, get involved, we appreciate it, and we'll build a better tool for you. So since the last demo, we've been working to add new features to RIPEstat. We've worked on the look and feel of the front page, and that's really been around restructuring the information so that it's easier to get what you want, more obvious where everything exists within the RIPEstat structure. We've added reverse DNS lookup functionality so that you can find information about reverse DNS delegation zones. A new and improved AS routing consistency widget, which is about finding how real-life routing data compares with what's found in Whois, and that's something which was originally a long time ago on RIPEstat, and we've since improved the performance and brought it back in. We're introducing AS neighbors information feature so that you can find from real routing information what peers are neighboring to a given resource. And we've improved the handling of special resources, which is things like special prefix blocks, which might not give you a normal set of results that you would get if you entered in a standard IP address or autonomous system number. So the new look landing page, everything around this has really been to focus your attention on the things you need and provide easy ways of getting to those. So the most prominent feature on the new look is the search box right at the top. That's really the core of RIPEstat. That's where you type in the AS number or the prefix, and then you get all your results. But below that, we've made some effort into providing quick links to places which you commonly will need to go, and particularly we've got the feedback channels, we've got changelog which describes things that have happened recently, and a link to the Data API, which is something that we're quite excited about. The videos also have been made consistent, so all the videos now are on YouTube, and they're easier to use as well. So the reverse DNS functionality, it's a graphical widget and an API data call. It shows delegation for a given resource, so for a given prefix, and for related prefixes, so prefixes which are more or less specific. It's currently based on RIPE database data. Coming soon, we'll be adding individual DNS entries for hosts within a prefix. So this is based on a data set which will show individual host names with partially anonymized IP addresses instead of just showing you the delegation zones. The ability to actually check up DNS against real-world information, IPv6 ripeness integration, and DNSSEC. And there's the widget, so that's the graphical version of the reverse DNS functionality, and you can include it on your page using the script tag, which is shown on this slide, and that's really what Vasco was talking about last month. And as with all the new style widgets, there's the corresponding data call, so if you don't like the way we've presented the visualization in the widget, then you can make your own, or you can use the data for something else. There's also the AS routing consistency widget, so this is for comparing objects in the WHOIS database with actual BGP activity, which is collected by the Routing Information Service, which is the RIPE probes, which are situated in data centers around the world, not to be confused with RIPE Atlas. It includes information on advertised prefixes as well as import-export peers, and it's similar to the RIPERIS RRCC project. So there's a widget that you can include, and it shows these three tabs down here, and there's the corresponding data call, so if you have any other use for this information you can use it. There's also the AS neighbors data call, so this uses RIS data again, and it finds peers for a particular AS. So one particular use for this is to work out whether an AS is in use. So there's the AS in use is an existing tool, and this partly inspired this particular data call, and it shows you the neighbors, the neighboring peers of the AS you give. So from that you'll be able to get some indication of how active it is. There will be a graphical widget, there's not yet, but there will be, and there will be more features as well, and more data sources. So we're hoping it won't just be RIS data, but there'll be data from other root collectors. There's now improved handling of special resources. So this is if you enter something like private address space or a 6 to 4 prefix in IPv6 or AS0 if you're entering an ASN. And when you do that, quite often most of the widgets will not work quite as expected, and we found it was a bit confusing. So now what we have is consistently at the top in the resource overview box, there'll be a warning just to say, we recognize that what you've just put in here isn't exactly a normal resource, and the widgets below might be somewhat different to what you'd expect. The list of these blocks is published. It's actually in a widget, and feedback is not just welcome but actually encouraged. We want people to check this and to make sure that it's consistent with what they think it should be. So there were lots of other changes as well. One thing which you may notice if you pay attention to your address bar is that HTTPS has been enabled and is the preferred way of accessing RIPEstat. So you'll be redirected to HTTPS. So that can just provide added privacy for people using the site, but one of the main reasons why we've enabled it is as part of an effort to integrate RIPEstat into the RIPE NCC Access, which is a single sign-on framework that's used across the board for RIPE NCC. It's not currently enabled, but it will be soon, and we're going to be adding features to that. We've increased the size of the supported prefixes from a /10 to a /8, so you can now search for bigger prefixes. And when this was announced on Twitter, we noticed that quite a few of you immediately searched for /8, and I don't know if people were trying to take down the servers, but they handled it, so that was fine. There is possibly, because some of the widgets are quite JavaScript intensive, there may be issues in some people's browsers, so we really encourage you, if you do get those issues, to tell us if scripts are hanging or browsers are unresponsive or anything like that. Widgetizing continues, so that's converting everything into the new architecture, which means more widgets and more data calls for other people to use, and just all the general things that we have to do anyway, like fixing bugs, improving performance, which includes things like working on our caching layer and working on our back-end support, and responding to your feedback, which might be adding new features or it might just be explaining how things work, but it's all very valuable to us. So in the future, specifically over the next month, we're going to be working on converting to that new architecture. We're hoping, if not by the next demo, then the demo after, everything will be converted. Improving the AS neighbors widget, so that's the things that I mentioned before, adding extra visualizations, explaining and giving control of junk and noise filtering. For example, in routing history widget, we're doing some filtering on what we consider to be junk in the background, but we're not explaining what that filtering is, which could mean that you don't see things that you expect to be seeing. So what we want to do is present the option in the form of a tick box or something like that, and also explain our methodology so people can choose whether or not to have this filtering. Adding history to GeoIP, so you don't only know what the current geographic location of an IP address is, but you can actually go back through time and find out how it's changed. And the RIPE NCC Access integration, probably the first things we're going to do with that is add comments and personalization. So there's currently the ability to add comments to the site that will be tied to a login account. And personalization, you can currently edit the layout of the widgets on the page. Well, that will now be saved and stored against your login, so it will be there when your browser session expires. Eventually, we'd like to introduce some more meaningful integration with RIPE-NCCC Access. So, for instance, if you have an LIR account and you're responsible for some resources, then maybe you'd be able to get a more detailed view of those resources within RIPEstat. Feedback, we want it, we encourage it. Please play with the site, please play with the widget API, try putting widgets onto your own pages, look at the data API calls, see if there's anything you find useful, see if there's anything you would like to change or anything you would like added. Anything at all really, we're kind of open to it and responsive. There's various channels, website, email, and Twitter. Okay, so that's the end of this month's demo. The next demo will be on Tuesday again, March the 20th. The demo after that will be at RIPE64, the RIPE meeting in Ljubljana. The session and the slides for this demo will be archived on RIPE Labs, labs.ripe.net, and you can always get this demo, other demos, other videos on the RIPE-NCC YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, hope you keep on getting use out of RIPEstat, and see you next month.